Hello and welcome to this special edition of Market Talk on designing the future food service experience in association with Marco Beverage Systems. I'm therefore delighted to be joined today by Marco's Commercial Director, Daniel Versi, as well as Jack Sharkey, Managing Director of Vision Commercial Kitchens, and Arno Kasovic, the former exec chef at Eat, and also the founder of a soon-to-be launched QSR concept called Loaf & Co. Hello there, guys. Thank you for joining me today. Over the next half an hour or so, we're going to be exploring what the future of food service design might look like, especially given the blurring of lines between traditional retail, food service and F&B environments. Daniel, we'll kick off with you. There's been a considerable amount of product innovation within Marco's portfolio over the last 12 months. How heavily has this been shaped by the kind of changes that you're seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, we have seen changes. There's been a general trend over the last number of years to a move to under-counter systems, where Marco have been kind of leading that charge. It's been across segments, so in convenience, in HoReCa, in cafes and the like. And so that trend has continued, and we're adding to those ranges with kind of touchless solutions in this environment that we're coming out of, where that's obviously quite relevant, and the need for multi-use systems with sort of one system to do many things. We're seeing that as a trend, and sort of the move to specialty and craft made to order products, which is a trend we're seeing. So yeah, that's the kind of the overarching trends we've seen, and the COVID has affected some of those. The touchless solutions have definitely been accelerated, I would say, but that move to under counter was growing every year. It frees up counter space. It creates less of a barrier between the customer you're trying to serve, and we've seen that across many industries. So yeah, they would be the main trends we've seen.
And it's interesting that there was obviously an element of these trends happening before COVID, but as you pointed out there, things like the touchless systems and so on are now coming to the fore even more because of the environment that we're in. Presumably now, when it comes to designing new equipment, that there are more considerations that you have to think about for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, touchless was actually something that was happening before. We were actually working on solutions before that, because actually self-service was becoming more a part of people wanting to offer, say, premium water, so chilled, filtered water at a self-service operation. And touchless would have some advantages in that space, where it's would have some benefits on workflow. Also, there's an argument there on buttons being with customer facing, would be the use of buttons and whether sensors are actually more reliable over time, which is interesting as well. So yeah, absolutely, the COVID has sped up a lot of those developments, but they were kind of the direction was there. And as I say, Marco, in the 12 years I've been working for the company, has seen a huge swing, and we've been leading that charge to the move to under counter. So a big part of our sales now is under counters, not just water, hot and cold, but coffee systems with things like the SP9, which produce single cup filter coffee, which is smade to order by the barista, automating that process. So automation is again coming across catering and coffee in the sort of worlds we play in. Absolutely. And yeah, so touchless automation, under counters are all things we're seeing, and I can't see really this situation slowing them down.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And Jack, for you, are some of those themes quite familiar in the conversations that you're having with some of your customers, particularly those with more of a retail-led business?
Yeah, very, very familiar. And I echo what Dan says. There has been a move to clearing the counter, creating more space on the counter, and getting rid of those old traditional looking water boilers, ugly looking things on the worktop, and kind of making it a lot more sleek and design led. But I think there's also some other areas that, and I don't know how Dan's found this, but there's been a bit of I found over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a bit of a tea revolution coming through as well. Tea's become much more trendy and much more to the fore as well. So some of the products that I know Marco do and do particularly well, where you can have multi-temperatures on hot water as well, where when you're looking at those specialty teas, it really helps to be able to work with those different water temperatures. So yeah, we've got afternoon teas. We've got clients who are working more on the retail side, on the tea side. Yeah, we're starting to see that blend of your more traditional coffee shop, your tea shop, moving into the retail environment as well.
And obviously, beverage has become such an important area, hasn't it, for a lot of food service operators now? And I think they're taking that much more seriously than they perhaps were in the past. Certainly in terms of the variety of beverages they provide.
Oh, for sure. I think you can't underestimate how important the food and beverage, and the beverage side of it is just as important as the food side of it in any operation, whether you're full hospitality or you're kind of just dipping your toes into the hospitality market. Beverage is really important part. I'm sure Arno would agree with that.
Yeah, and Arno, to bring you into the conversation, you're currently in the process of launching a new food venture called Loaf and Coal, which is due to launch next month when the industry gets open again inside. Tell us about some of the preparations that you've had to go through and some of your thinking around your concept.
So I've had to really adapt to it. I've been spending the last 8 years in London. So being a director at Eat, I meant that I was heavily involved with opening shops internationally as well, so in Spain and France and around the UK. I've had to adapt to out of London business. The pace in London is fast. It's all about speed of service. But a lot of people have moved out of London, whether the offices have disappeared or they're working from home. And what I've decided is to go where everyone's gone, which is the West Coast and the South. I found a site in Bournemouth, and where I found setting up the business, you're speaking, I've had about 8 business plans so far. So I've had to adapt constantly to what I think is a need. I think the need is for quick service, but for it to be good value for money and to be authentic and to be traceable as well. So I've taken some of the experience from grab and go, mixed it with sort of gastronomic experience, in working Michelin-star restaurants and so on. And what I'm doing is I'm setting up a business that's based on tech. So people who come through our doors, they would use QR ordering, but what they will get will be sustainably sourced food, sourced locally when possible. I don't think it's absolutely essential. But what's essential is that the food is going to be free range, it's going to have an ethos, it's going to be sustainable. And I'm using technology to be able to cut my staff cost and give better value for money and get a great footfall by having a right pricing strategy. So what I've done essentially is taken some of the London experience, mixed it with some of my experience in the past, and I'm taking that outside of London, and I'm using latest in trend of equipment. I'm using a Unox combi oven. To be honest, I've never been able to afford any of this before, and now I'm really investing in technology to try to deliver that quick service. So I'm learning an awful lot doing it. I think I'm learning that the food business outside of London is very different, very, very different. People expect a bit more. They expect it to be served quite quickly, but the standard has to remain the same.
Yeah, very interesting. And as you mentioned there, you spent a lot of time at Eat prior to the takeover by Pret, and obviously they were a kind of bastion of the high street grab and go food service model. Do you think that model will change now as we move into this sort of new era post COVID, or do you think we'll see a return to how the market was before for grab and go?
I don't think it's going to change massively. But what's going to change is the London scene, really. Pret is huge in London. And I think it'll take a while for London to get back to where it was. Where the offices have moved out, it's not going to be the same level of people who are in a rush to eat. I might be wrong in thinking that, but I think people are going to want to have an in-between. They're going to want to be able to sit down and have lunch and take maybe a bit more time to have lunch, or they're just going to do that at home. So, the concept of a good example is Wagamama, speeding up their service and having a quick ordering like you have at McDonald's. I think that's brilliant because the quality of their food is remaining the same, but they're able to serve people a little bit quicker. But equally, you look at businesses such as Claude Brasserie, who've done really well during lockdown, during home deliveries. I think they're going to flourish, but what they've got now is they've got other legs of their business. So when they used to have people coming to their sites and spend an hour or two eating, now people can eat it at home, they can come to their sites, or they can to grab and go as well. So people have had to adapt, but they've developed businesses that are a lot more sustainable because they are selling in, out, and on the net. In the business I'm setting up, I'm going to be selling online, I'm going to do grab and go, and I'm going to serve people who come in as well. So I'm not going to rely on just one avenue of sales. I'm going to rely on multiple avenues to make sure that my future is bulletproof as much as can be.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and I think as you allude to there, it's about providing convenience for all channels, and being as flexible as possible. And that also goes for the equipment side. So Daniel, if we come to you, when we talk about this area of innovation, what does innovation mean to you from a manufacturer point of view, and how much time are you spending on that area when it comes to introducing new products into the market that can support this sort of new way of serving?
Yeah, well, we innovation, Marco's 40 years we've been designing and beverage equipment, and we always have one would argue probably a twofold innovation roadmap of new products. We listen to our market constantly. We want to we play in a relatively narrow field, and we want to be innovators and leaders in that field. So what we're seeing is to your point, Anna, with regards to sustainability of and provenance of food, and people are I think the move away from single-use plastics will continue. I think COVID has been a blip in that with regards to maybe there's but I think ultimately single-use plastics will reduce. So there's the growth of concentrates and of craft concentrates, for example. So instead of having a ready-to-drink beverage, you would use a concentrate and use chilled sparkling water to create a craft soda, for example, or a craft beverage at the point of dispense. There's seasonality is we're seeing huge. So the ability to change up your system. Obviously, seasons in the UK, hot versus cold in summer, and we're seeing that. And the operators need to do more in small spaces. I think actually you're going to see less footprints of indoor space, a smaller footprints indoors and bigger outdoor spaces. I think that's going to be a trend you're going to see. So the need to be able to do more in small spaces is something we were seeing before, and I think that's only going to be accelerated. As I say, so those sort of trends of the sustainability, and to goes to Jack's point really of people if they're going to go out are going to want a special service. So whether it's a special afternoon tea with single origin estate teas from a specific has a story behind it, has provenance behind it, and we'll pay that a little bit more for that, I think, and understand that they are they're not taking away from the environment, they're probably adding to the environment, and that they are maybe adding to the producers in the coffee world and the tea world, that they're not that's important to them, and our products help with that. Operators are looking at the whole life of machines as opposed to just the cost of them up front. We're never going to be the cheapest units sold, but the whole life costs. Energy efficiency is as important now as it ever has been. So the mix that Jack talked about there with 3 temperatures, it's the first boiler that has vacuum insulated tanks, so it significantly reduces the heat loss in the boiler. Therefore running costs are far lower. So you might pay a bit more day one, but over the life of the machine it's going to be less. So all of these things, I think operators large and small will want to look at that, as opposed to, and actually is this machine going to last me 5 years as opposed to 2 years, and actually ultimately that's better for the planet and better for the environment. So it's kind of I think those things they're important to us. We're on a program to to become we are sustainable, or even more sustainable, looking at how our corporate governance and our ESG and trying to improve there. So that's the journey we're on as well as a business. So that's kind of the trends I see, and as I say, reduction in single-use plastics and that kind of move towards craft made to order beverages is kind of we'll continue to see that, I think, moving forward.
Sure, but I think it's also interesting though. It's not just in hospitality and retail that we're seeing that. It's in the workplace as well. So we're seeing wider ranges of machinery going in, and more expensive machinery, like your Freer type units going into the workplace environment to be able to offer that flexibility on hot, cold, and sparkling water environments to create that sustainability as well. So we're seeing that across multiple multiple sectors, not just in hospitality and retail.
Yeah,
absolutely. In corporates, instead of having a fridge of bottled water, you see it in restaurants where instead of having bottled water, which is fine, but there's also filtered premium water bottled at source for the restaurants, for meeting rooms, like you say, in workplace. Jack, absolutely, it's the trend is going to continue, and I think only be accelerated when it's only going to accelerate.
You made a great point there as well about the footprint, of F&B environments and kitchens moving forward as well. And there was a squeeze on kind of kitchen space prior to the pandemic. Jack's smiling there, so I'm sure that resonates. It's coming to you, Jack. Presumably this has been a massive factor now in terms of the spaces that you're designing.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a revolution potentially coming as a result of the pandemic over the last 12 months, and I think there's going to be some fundamental shifts in certain parts of the marketplace. And what I mean by that, and there's probably 3 or 4 different things that you can kind of pick up off the back of the pandemic, and they could probably be summarised into where we are currently today. Right here, right now, we've only got dining out, outdoor dining spaces that we can go to. And I think that will stimulate a bit of a revolution into alfresco dining into the UK market. I mean, it's popular in France, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain. I go to Italy in November and December, and it's 3, 4, 5 degrees centigrade, and you are still dining out, because they gear everything up for that outdoor dining experience. We haven't dealt with that in the UK, but I think the pandemic has forced us and will continue to force us to do that. So I think the alfresco dining revolution I think it's going to come. I think it will gain momentum, and as people wear the right attire and they get the right environment outside with the heaters and the protection, I think that will stimulate that growth into outdoor dining spaces. So operators will start to think about how that works within their businesses. I think Dan picked up on a point before, and you said it yourself, Andrew. Kitchens have been constantly under pressure about reducing, but if you can extend out into your outdoor dining space, and I think the second part of that revolution that's going to come through, and I've seen it with a number of clients through the pandemic, they've become very focused about what's on their menu. They've consolidated their menu. That creates several things. It means they can potentially look at smaller footprint kitchens, reduce their staffing costs, consolidate their purchasing, and reduce down their overall operating costs. So I think when you couple those 2 things together, I think you've got a bit of a revolution potential coming through, and I think operators will start to look at that a lot closer. But I think you're right, Arno, in terms of customers still want to see that sustainability. They still want that provenance, and they will pay for that. And I think if you wrap all that up in that experience as well, then you're on some good thing. I think the last thing I would say...
It's interesting, Jeff. You've just described my business plan there, because I've been looking at how I can serve high quality food at a medium to low price at speed, and you can't do it the way you operate a normal restaurant. I think the way normal restaurants operated is just a bit dated. The way I look at it is, I like the idea of having a site that supplies others. You've got smaller footprint, you've got smaller kitchens, where essentially assembling food that's been prepared in one spot. And what that means is you get more consistency, you get better quality control as well. It means that you can keep on opening stores a lot quicker as well. So this is the format we use at Eat. We had 135 stores with a single production unit where everything was made. It was a lot easier to control the quality and to send it out from that unit. This is what I'm doing. I've got a site where I've actually divided floors as to production, send, and serve. Even it's in the same building. And what that means is that it gets me ready to an expansion, because if I can do my prep from the top floor to supply the bottom kitchen, I can do it from anywhere. But what that means as well is that I don't have to force myself to work more than 40 hours a week. I want to give them quality of life. And it means that I can serve food quickly. I don't cut any corners. And, as you said before, I mean, personally, I don't want to be using plastic bottles, because I think it's a bit backwards. Why should you do that? I think you need to think forward, and using equipment and technology to do that, and applying common sense. And I think you can only go the right way. And what you said, Dan, about using sort of bottling water on site, if you like. I think that's brilliant. I haven't thought about that. And I think if I had a tap of sparkling water that was filtered, I would rather do that than have to buy bottles made of plastic flown from Turkey or wherever. That makes no sense at all. So, so I think that the pandemic has really pushed everyone to think more carefully. People expect more from their money. They're ready to pay for an experience. But I think I quite like the idea of outdoor dining. If we could bring a bit of France and Italy to the UK, I think you couldn't go anywhere else in the world. It would just be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any reason why we can't do that. And I think there's also another bit of a revolution happening as well. I mean, the pandemic has pushed a lot of people to work from home, and as a result of that, they've been working out in the suburbs. So the city centres, unfortunately, they take a real battering. I think the city centres will start to recover. But I think the fact that people have been working on more from home has stimulated them to eat out more local. So I think there's going to be a much bigger move to people eating locally and eating more local, which will open up bigger opportunities for operators to move into those suburbs rather than just concentrating in the city centres. And so I think that's another one. I think, Anna, you said it yourself, you've come out of London, you've moved out into smaller cities in the suburbs. I think that is quite a revolution as well. It's going to come because people aren't going to be in the office as much. People will be working from home more. But they'll still want to eat out, and they'll still want to go out on a more regular basis, and they will look for local places. And I think that will stimulate, another layer of the economy as well.
Sorry, Dan.
Sorry. No, I was going to say, I think we're open to saying they've stopped following the skyscraper. That was a policy change that they made. They are moving to those suburbs. And talk to my colleague in Singapore. Even in a city state, the move out of the central business district is happening now, and it's it's moving to the suburbs. And to your point, Arnold, with regards to I was talking to a new concept in the States where it's a drive-through concept, huge in the States with drive-through, and they were looking at doing their entire beverage menu from concentrate. So that was doing coffee, cold coffee, tea, craft sodas, all from concentrate. And so it would be craft concentrate served at the point of dispense, quick, repeatable, and that's something. So that's kind of that's not going to see everybody, but it's that from it's done at a really high level. But it's repeatability, and to your point, it's done at it's an automated level where you're using technology to deliver a really great experience, and that's kind of what we're seeing.
I think we are still behind the curve with technology within the food service environment. I think there's still a lot more to come yet. And I think you picked on it before, Dan, in terms of innovation. The food service market, generally in terms of equipment, has been generally just about incremental innovation rather than radical innovation. And I think we'll start to see some radical innovation coming through over the next 12, 18 months, 24 months, because I think a lot of the manufacturers are kind of looking at it in terms of staffing costs, footprints in kitchens. So I think you'll start to see a lot of innovation coming through in the food service market and utilizing that technology as well, because consistency and footprint space and staffing costs, they're what operators are looking for day in and day out.
Yeah. And presumably, Arno, these are the things that have been on your kind of tick list as you've gone through the process in the recent months of preparing to open your site down in Bournemouth, and hopefully more beyond that, thinking about all those elements.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, 6 months ago, I was looking at opening in central London a food-to-go business. And I soon realized I really need to think very differently. So yeah, of course, for me, staff cost is essential. But most of all, I find that I can't eat anywhere on the go that's good food, that's sustainable. It just doesn't exist. I've got nothing against the likes of Burger King and McDonald's. It's for target audience. It's not me, but I wish I could go to them and have good food. I can't find it anywhere, and I've got food allergies, which means that I can't really eat out. Because there's no traceability. Most places I would go to, they would just not know what they're serving. They have a bit of a clue as to what it is, but I went to Bill's the other day. They refused to serve me because they couldn't say for sure whether there was rapeseed oil or not in my food. And that's really scary that you're being served food that no one really knows where it's from. So I'm really excited about the prospect to be able to offer food that's fast food, but it's I'm not saying it's going to be healthy, because it won't be necessarily that healthy, but it's going to be delicious. It's going to be affordable. It's going to be British beef. It's going to be free range. And I really think that that's the way to go. I think if the likes of Pret, you know, they've got nowhere to hide anymore. You know, I don't think anyone wants to eat Brazilian chicken. You know, I think people are going to start thinking differently about their businesses, so they have a more sustainable approach to what they do. And I really think now is the time to do it, because when people come out of a lockdown, they're going to spend the money that's been burning their pockets. There'll be a lot of competition, and as an operator, you're going to have to give something that's a bit different. Otherwise, people will just go to McDonald's.
I know, if you think about what you just said there in terms of the provenance and where that food's coming from, and if the lessons are learned over the pandemic, people would rather have better quality with provenance and a less choice, but done well, than, you know, 150 items on the menu. That's that for me. I'd certainly want that if I was going into an operation. I'd rather have 4 products that are done well, that I know the provenance on it, and I can get it when I want it, how I want it, where I want it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think having a proactive approach as well. For example, I started looking at coffee and where we're going to source the coffee. I thought I could buy coffee that's from a middleman somewhere, and it's been flown from South Africa, sent to Italy, and then sent to the UK and packed. And I can't do that. You know, I'm buying my coffee straight from the farm in El Salvador. I'm bagging it in a 10-kilo bag in a box, and I'm going to bag it myself. Because I think that's the right thing to do. You know, I think you've got to make sure that everyone gets a fair share. And it's the same in using the equipment. If you've got the right equipment in place, you're going to be able to give your staff a bit more of a chance to be consistent. They're going to have more of a chance to do their 40 hours a week rather than just firefighting to try to get something out of the door. And I actually learned that, funny enough, I've been in the trade 25 years. The last 2 months, I realized how important it was to really invest in technology. You know, I'm only 44, but I think I was a dinosaur before that. I did not realize that to have, you know, a Marco boiler, to have a proper coffee machine, to have, you know, a good combi oven is absolutely essential, because technology will help you to cut your staff, but the staff you're employing will get paid better. They'll have more working conditions, better working conditions. So I really think there's a bit of a revolution. I hope it's not just me. I don't think it is. I think you know, the large
think it's rather. Oh, sorry.
The large brands such as Pret are going to try to come out of London. I think they're going to struggle, because their business model it doesn't necessarily work out of London as it does in London. And we saw that at EAT. We opened stores in Manchester, which we shut very quickly, Birmingham, which we shut very quickly. You know, the business model only worked in London, not outside of London. So I think it's going to be tough for some.
Yeah, sure. And you know, all of this points to that great word experience, which I think you've all mentioned at some point during this discussion. Dan, just to finish with you as a very final point, how much do you expect experience, the customer experience, to play a part in future food service design?
Well, absolutely key. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of the call. You know, our systems hopefully break down the barrier between the person serving, you know, it's coffee, whatever they're serving, and the customer. And you know, the successful people that we do, you know, make an absolute. They're joyous of serving their customers. That's what they're there to do, and you know, serve them great food, but also serve them with passion, with a smile, and actually what automation does, what you know, systems that enable you know, people that want to give that great hospitality, and it allows them to do that because it gives them more time to do that and actually engage with their clients and offer that great service, as opposed to, you know, have their head into a brewing a coffee or making whatever they're making. So I think, you know, that's really where you know, I think the operators that will survive, will do well is absolutely, and what makes people return. So we have customers, and that's the successful coffee shops are the people where they take a pride in that service they offer. And absolutely, I can't see that. Actually, it's only going to be more important because people will go out, but they will go out, I think, in a way that they will be more choosy with where they go, and they'll go where they know they're going to get that great experience.
Yeah, well, thank you so much to all of you. Some fantastic insight into what we can expect in the months to come. Clearly plenty of changes ahead, and also plenty of kind of big themes that are out there shaping the way that people are going to eat and how they're going to consume food. So Daniel, Jack, Arno, thanks very much for your time. And to everybody watching, we'll see you again next week with another episode of Market Talk. Thank you.